Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the third training tape for basketball officials sponsored by the WROA and the AHOA for the 2022-2023 season. My name is Cade Murray, and I'm a training coordinator for the WROA and the AHOA. And this is the third of four training tapes that we do for this season, being recorded in late January. We're kind of hitting the halfway point, or just past the halfway point for the grind. And it's been a really fun season so far, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the season brings. A quick disclaimer or tip for you: if you're looking to navigate the different sections of this video, you may do so by looking at the YouTube description, and it will have the timestamps for the different topics that we have going on through here. If you want to either skip to the first topic right away, or if you want to skip to a certain part of the video, you may do so there. As always, we have our disclaimers. Remember that the training tape is not approved by the NFHS or the WIAA. This does not count for any credit or clinic of a level advancement for the WIAA or any state association for that matter. Remember, I'm not a trained clinician. I have no affiliation with the WIAA other than being a licensed official. I'm hired by the WROA and the AHOA. This training tape is for three-person officiating crews, and the training is for NFHS rules, mechanics, and primary coverage areas. You might see clips. I don't think we have any today from men's and women's college mechanics or a game or anything like that. Remember that everything circles back to high school. Remember, no clip is ever meant to call out or degrade one official, crew of officials, player, coach, or team. And if you have questions, you are always welcome to contact me at my email listed there. All right, so our first topic that we're going to look at today is one that seems very simple at first, but is actually a little bit more complex when we look into the rule, and I think is very misunderstood across the basketball world, and that's backcourt violations. When we think about backcourt violations, we have to remember the first touch, last touch kind of quote or saying in our head. And if we look at the rule that I have listed there on the screen, I think a very common misconception is when we have team control in the front court, and the ball goes to the backcourt, that if the defense touches it before it goes to the backcourt, that it does not matter if they were the first or last to touch it, or excuse me, if they were the last to touch it at all, it can be recovered by the offense. But this is not necessarily true. And if you look at what I have listed here to summarize, it is basically the only way the offense can recover the ball in the backcourt is if the defense was the last to touch it. So if there is a pass and the defense tips it and is the last to tip it into the backcourt, then the offense can recover it. However, if let's say there's a pass, the defense tips it, but then the offense touches the ball and it goes into the backcourt, the defense is the only one who's allowed to recover the ball there. The offense may not, and that is based off of this rule that I have listed on the screen right here. And then another thing to consider is status. Remember that players must establish themselves in the front court before legally touching a ball with front court status. This will be seen in a couple clips we have coming up here. And another kind of interesting tidbit is if a player has front court status, but the ball has backcourt status, and let's say they jump from the front court, they catch the ball in the air, and they land in the backcourt, by them being a front court status player, catching the ball in the air, the ball becomes front court status. And then by touching the backcourt, that would be considered a backcourt violation. I actually have an example of that here in this training tape. Okay, so our first play that we're going to look at is just a simple example of players having to make an establishment of status. I know the video runs a little bit quick here, but if you can slow it down, by all means do so. But basically, we have the ball. It's been caught by a player in the front court. And as this player is coming from the backcourt, they jump and they catch the ball, but they never establish themselves into the front court. Remember that they have to have that foot come down into the front court for them to be a front court status player. So as you can see here, the player clearly does not establish front court status. And then as he catches that ball, he is still in backcourt status. So that is correctly ruled here by the trail. Okay, our next play that we're going to look at here is an example of the first touch, last touch that I was talking about. So the team in black is the team that has the possession of the ball in the front court. And as you'll see here, there's a scrum. The defense does touch it, but then the offense here forces the ball into the backcourt. and then is recovered by the offense and is allowed to continue play. This is by rule a backcourt violation because the offense was the last to touch the ball. As you see here, the center is communicating to the trail that the defense tipped it. The only time that the center or trail should communicate a tip is if the defense was the last to touch and the offense does touch it in the backcourt. Otherwise, there's no tip signal required. So this is actually incorrectly ruled by the crew because the center is the one who says, hey, the defense was the last to tip it, and then therefore the trail sees that communication and does not rule a backcourt violation. So this by rule is a backcourt violation that is incorrectly passed on by the crew. So in this situation here, we have about the same type of play. We're going to see that the defense tips it, but then the offense then causes the ball to go into the backcourt. And you see that the center does a good job of not communicating this. The trail recognizes this as well, and then correctly rules a backcourt violation. Now, I know that there may be a lot of misconceptions about this. As you can see, the team in black is a little upset about the call, but we have to remember that this rule does exist, and it's correctly called here in this circumstance. Nice job by the center and the trail official of knowing the correct rule with first touch, last touch. Okay, this is the last play of this that I'm talking about. And the action is going to come from over here in this direction, if you can see my marker there on the screen. Now, as this play develops, we see that there is going to be a pass made, and the player who has front court status jumps into the backcourt while catching the ball. Now, based off of this play, we definitely see that the player who has front court status catches the ball in midair and comes down into the backcourt. Remember, once they have front court status, they are front court when they touch the ball in the air. So when the ball is caught in the air by a player with front court status, that ball becomes front court status. And then with them landing in the backcourt, it then becomes a backcourt violation because the ball had front court status and then became backcourt status. So this is a very, very good catch by the center official, not one that you see often, but is supported by the rules. Okay, the second topic that we're going to talk about today is offensive fouls off the ball, which, yes, is illegal screens, but we're going to cover things kind of outside of illegal screens, as you'll see here by the following clips that we have. We see that offensive fouls can occur with a few different kind of options. There are screens that may not be legal. Remember, to set a legal screen, we need that required stride with time and distance. Restricting help defenders with arms or legs, and then using body parts in general to illegally restrict defenders attempting to make a play on the ball. So we'll take a look at some clips here, some different types of offensive fouls that occur off of the ball. Okay, so the first play that we're going to look at here is a good example of just an illegal screen. And we're going to be looking at this player in gold right here. So as this play develops, the lead is watching his primary, and as he's going to make a rotation, calls an offensive foul for an illegal screen. Why is this screen illegal, basically? Well, we see that the player who's going to attempt to make a play on the ball is cut off illegally by the offensive player. And he does this because he never truly establishes screening position. He never gives that time and distance to be set with the screen. He takes and moves his body and restricts him from being able to make the play, and thus could have resulted in a three-point shot. The center does a good job of staying with his primary, of going to the shooter, and the lead does a nice job of continuing to officiate as he rotates over and catch the offensive foul. So this is a correctly called illegal screen, so to speak, that we see here on this play. So on this play, we're going to be taking a look at white number 20 right here that I'm going to circle on the screen here. And this is another kind of interesting play and one that might catch you off guard. So we see that there's going to be a drive from the corner, and this player is essentially going to push over the defensive player, and then the defensive player gets called for the foul here. So this is incorrectly ruled by the crew. The offensive player goes to set a screen, isn't used, and then pushes himself into the defensive player. Now, I can see an argument of saying that his defender kind of gave him a little bit of a push, but I don't believe that that push was enough for the contact that was created by this offensive player in this particular play. So because the crew missed that push on white 20, now the defensive player that was the primary defender on white number 0 is called for a foul. So we need to do a good job of officiating all screens, not getting straight lined. Another piece of information in terms of mechanics and such is that when the ball kind of settles over there, the lead could start to initiate a rotation and start to get their eyes on the screen to help with this play. But the center needs to recognize that he's on his own on this play and needs to get this call. So this is a good kind of example of not necessarily an illegal screen, but it's a legal contact that occurs off of the ball. Okay, so on this play, we're going to take a look at this player who's down on the right side. I'm circling him right now, and he's going to kind of be our culprit, so to speak, for the next type of offensive foul that we're going to look at. So we see a transition play and then a drive, and he's trying to seal off his defender. Now, as this play develops, as he begins to seal, he's no longer sealing, he's now pushing and restricting with the defensive play, restricting the defensive player with his arms, attempting to come over and help on this play. So this is a good example of a play where the help defense is restricted by an arm trying to make a play. So this is a good job of the center, who does stay with the play and officiates the contact to the rim, and then the lead, who doesn't ball watch and catches the offensive player who's restricting his defender as the play develops more. So this is a type of play that you may see at a little bit higher level games or lower level, depending on the certain circumstance that you see fit. But something where the lead just needs to stay disciplined in general with getting a call like this so that these plays are correctly ruled like this one is here. Okay, on this play, we're going to be looking at this player right here off of a rebounding action that we're going to see on a long shot. So as this play kind of develops, we see that a long shot occurs. There's an offensive rebound, a drive to the rim, and then the offensive player appears to kind of push out the defensive player. And this is a kind of a good get from the trail here. There is a rotation that's initiating, but the trail going to be center kind of sees this play and has a good line of sight at it. The center who is taking this play to the rim isn't really the primary official for this call, even though he could get it. The lead certainly can get this play if they have an angle, but they may be looking through bodies. We see that white number 3 goes, restricts the defensive player from going to be able to make a play kind of with an illegal screen. They never face the opponent, and then they kind of just push him out of the way there as the player goes to make a play on the ball. So this is a nice job overall by just going outside your primary when you don't have much there and getting plays like this that happen. These plays are a little bit more common, I think, than people realize. But if we are good officials in sticking to our PCAs and then stretching when we need to, then we're going to be able to get plays like this and get them out of the game, especially come playoff time. Okay, the last play that we're going to look at here is a little bit of a special play. It doesn't really have a topic here. And I'm just going to forewarn you now that this is a Blarge. We don't see these very often, but when we do, there's often things that we can learn from, and a lot of things we can learn from. Something that I want to kind of mention, especially with a play like this, is these are definitely not the moments that you want to see yourself on film is when you have a play like this. But what we need to remember is we cannot criticize the officials for what occurred. We need to learn from it. It's easy to critique and say that you could do better, but you never know when this could happen to you. So you need to know that you can adjudicate this in a proper way if it happens. And the exact situation that we're going to see here is in the casebook. It's 4.19.8. It's on page 31 if you want to go take a look at it yourself. Okay, so let's take a look at the Blarge play here. We're going to see that this is kind of a play from the top of the key. We're going to have someone slide in, and we're going to have a block call, and then we're going to have a charge call. So automatically, we know that we might have some nerves, but we need to understand how to adjudicate this. Quick learning tip, though, from this is double whistles are okay, but this play in particular, and it's kind of nice because we see that the court line is kind of split right down the middle there with the way this court is set up. This is by rule the center's primary because he has that whole half side of the lane. He has those defenders, And he does a good job of picking this up. And in my opinion, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it, I do believe that the center official got right in a charge. But regardless, it's okay to have double whistles like this, but we need to post and hold. And that's the biggest thing I want to get across with this to prevent this is we got to post and hold with plays like this. The lead official doesn't post at all. He just gives the block signal right away, and that's not necessarily what we want to do there. We need to post even if we don't recognize that there's a double whistle. The center official also needs to post and be patient. While it is his primary, if he recognizes a double whistle, he has to be patient here. And even if that lead gives that block mechanics, so to speak, he's got to live with the fact that the lead has already made a preliminary signal and we need to move forward with it. And it's a good discussion afterwards. So what do? We have a block charge. Both are called and the basket goes in. That's something that we need to remember is that the ball does go in the bucket here. Well, this is actually adjudicated in the casebook. If a normal Blarge happens without the ball being shot, the rule is a double foul. We report both for the offensive player and the defensive player, and then we go to the point of interruption. In this case, however, since the ball was shot, there are two things that happen. One is if the ball goes in, we will go to the point of interruption, which is the team that's on defense now in blue taking the ball out on the end line on a non-spot throw, and so they may run the end line. But we also count the basket because the point of interruption is after a made basket. And since that ball went in, we thereby rule count this basket. If the ball doesn't go in, then we essentially have a double foul on a shot attempt, which by rule then you would go to the alternating possession arrow to determine possession. So there are lots of things that we can learn from this overall, but the biggest takeaway is that we learn from it and that we get the next play, especially if maybe you're an official who was on this game or whatever, or it happens to you. We can't let it distract us moving forward. We just have to adjudicate it and move on from there. Okay, that does it for the third training tape for this year. Congrats to those who got playoff assignments in Wisconsin, by the way. If you haven't accepted those, make sure that you do. Keep up your hard work and always contact me if you need anything. Thank you very much.